Definitely tough acts to follow, but so I got a little bit of a bird's eye view because I'm the Ontario coordinator, and so one of the things that I think has been so exciting about this campaign is that it's a real concrete example of where when workers fight to win and when we bring together working class solidarity, that we can really make a difference. And I want to just sketch out that in the food service sector, union density is quite low and wages are stubbornly low. And so just to say what what you actually won in the contract, wages on average were $12.41. And to get all those workers up to $15 an hour within 1 year signing that contract is phenomenal, and then more through the life of the contract. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. They won full benefits for part-time and full-time members by the end of the last year of the collective agreement, which is huge to get equal pay and benefits for part-timers. It's one of the key material incentives the capitalists have to try to displace full-time workers with part-time workers. So to get that financial equality is incredibly important, and a whole bunch of things. Not the least of which was standing up against Islamophobia and anti-black racism. And when there was the demonstration against Islamophobia and white supremacy that happened in Toronto, we organized an intervention to go in to say we will not tolerate Islamophobia anywhere, whether it's coming from Trump, whether it's coming from Kelly Leap, or whether it's coming from these little petty Trumps and petty leeches as managers in the workplaces on campuses, because the impact of the climate of Trump is that every bigot and every latent racist is much more confident to take it out on workers who are particularly vulnerable because they're either women or newcomers or racialized workers or workers for whom English is their second language. So that was really phenomenal, and what Malka said at our provincial meeting was so awesome, that she said, it was a transformative experience. We were dead inside, but the effect of the strike was to restore my pretty smile to my face. And it's like, I just thought that was so emblematic because she really, light literally came from her face. She's amazing. But I do want to say none of this is automatic, because it really did take a whole series of political decisions and political interventions to make it happen. The fact that Unite Here targeted the university and not just targeting Aramark was very smart politically, because campuses are outsourcing public services all the time in an effort to drive down wages. And so really, part of York, although I wanted to say, it's not us, it's Unite Here, Local 75, and Aramark, it's their business. York provides the financial money to contract Aramark to provide these services. So if York doesn't provide enough money to provide a decent, non-poverty wage for these workers, no corporation is going to be able to sustain that for any length of time, although we have no sympathy for Aramark. It made $93 million in profit last year, so we have no sympathy. But the point is that campus administrations are directly implicated in this, so it's very, very important. And the really key thing about this is that it poses the question, it implicates the universities in a way that makes people start thinking about the question of procurement of goods and services on campus, and the fact that unions are now looking, auditing their campuses to find those poverty wage jobs. And I think the messaging that came out around the strike, we were all doing some learnings in the strike, so Unite Here developed the language of end poverty wage jobs, which I think was brilliant messaging, because it has now caused this ripple effect across the province, where not only on campuses are now workers and students looking for poverty wage jobs to expose them to the light of day and to start developing collective strategies to take it on with their administrations. It's now starting to happen in hospitals. So, for example, food service workers at Montfort Hospital, I saw Keeping Ontario do a tweet that says, food service workers at Montfort Hospital are preparing to bargain 15 in fairness. So imagine if we can actually use this method to say no public institution should be implicated in poverty wage jobs. It's a way of bridging these experiences together. And why is it important to talk about class solidarity? And I think the speakers did an excellent job to just talk, very practically about numeric strength. 100 workers at York were not going to bring the campus to a halt. We needed to actually alter the balance of class forces, and how do we go about doing that? Well, we take, students, I'm sure everybody knows, students are not just students. the vast majority of students now work full-time or part-time and go to school. It is a tiny sliver of students now who are not working full-time or part-time while they're going to school. So the interesting thing about this campaign is that while many students are in the retail sector, small workplaces fragmented throughout the system, the campus is actually a place that almost like the cities do with workers, the campuses reconstitute the fragmented class forces of the students. And so they are a powerful force. But then the campus is also an employer that employs academic workers and support workers and so forth. So this idea of actually bringing the class forces to bear is very, very important. And connecting it with a much broader political campaign has been really important. Because that website, was very audacious, there's no doubt about it, and it really did, threaten to do a bunch of things. But that threat would never have been credible if it wasn't the case that all of the work that the Unite Here Local 75 had done and the Fight for 15 and Fairness crew, those threats were credible precisely because of all the building and that the solidarity that was issued was not the old-fashioned representative solidarity. I'd like to come here and on behalf of 3,500 workers offer you our wholehearted solidarity. It was what you might call participatory solidarity, where real bodies were really there, and it's not a cast of thousands, but it was a cast of, I would say dozens, if not maybe a couple hundred at those moments, which was very, very important, because it also tells us that sometimes as weak as we feel, their side is far weaker, and so even the tiniest bit of organization connected to something much broader can have a huge effect. And that's what we heard last year with grocery store workers who were bargaining at Metro grocery store. What they found when they took some of these demands to address precarious work to their employer, they said that the impact of bargaining 15 and Fairness had two impacts. One was it built the confidence of the members of the union to ask for more and to demand more and to expect more. But what they didn't expect would happen, that they observed happen, is that when they sat down at the bargaining table, and people must know in the grocery sector, similarly following the union, low union density, the unionized workers are a slim section of the workforce. So when they took their collective bargaining demands in the context of a broader campaign, what they found is that it actually transformed the balance of class forces at the bargaining table. And so these workers were able to win something called, in addition to fair scheduling and some other good provisions that you guys won, they won something called minimum wage plus, which tied every salary in the wage grid, because they had members who weren't all below $15. But every time the minimum wage increases, that dollar value will be applied to each level of the wage scale. And what that means is that it takes away this notion that it's charity for those union members who make more than $15 an hour to fight to raise the minimum wage. It actually gives them real material skin in the game so that union and non-union workers, low-income and higher-income workers can come together as equals with real material incentives to make this thing move forward. So that's one of the things why it's so exciting. And in that process, what is fantastic is that workers are learning, we don't have to wait till we elect the next government to affect change. If we join a union that has a strategic focus, that is actually trying to mobilize class solidarity, we don't have to wait till the next election. We can start winning it now. And I think, there's a bit of a debate in the labor movement about whether or not first you have to join a union and then you fight, or whether we can understand that workers join unions as a means of fighting for better work and wages. And so the best incentive to join a union is to show a union that's fighting for better work and wages. It's not the end, it's the means to improving wages and working conditions in the labor movement. A couple last things just about the nature of the campaign and some debates in the movement. Very quickly, I think the thing that makes the campaign for 15 and Fairness in Ontario, and I think certainly south of the border, so critically important, is that it is based on self-activity of workers themselves. It is not a question of somebody doing it on behalf of and so forth. And if you look at the kind of efforts that have been underway to improve wages and working conditions, there's sort of three groups that it falls into. You get the policy wonks that go in somewhere